Okay, hi all, my name is Aran Koning, and today I will talk to you about why and how to start a game collective. I will talk to you about the collective I'm part of, which is Sokpop Collective. I'll talk about how forming a collective can help you, and lastly I'll give you some tips on how to start a collective, roughly in that order. But before we get started, there is a disclaimer. There are many different styles of video game collectives, and the term collective is very broad, and it means different things to different people. This talks mostly about what being a game collective means to us as Sockpop, and our collective is mostly focused on making games and not necessarily on independent game culture or community like some other collectives that are out there. So now we have that out of the way, let's get started. So Sokpop Collective is a collective slash boy band of 4 independent Dutch game makers. This is Tijme, this is Tom, this is me, and this is Ruben. We formed at the end of 2015 when we were all still students, and we're all living in the Utrecht area in the Netherlands. Right now, Tijme and Tom and me have graduated, and Ruben is still studying. We met through a combination of like Twitter and game development events, and especially a shared love for the online game jam Ludendare. Before we formed Sockpop, we would often host meetups where we would get together and make games, often separately, like solo games, but we would do it in the same space, and we'd just like eat unhealthy food, all the classic game jam stuff. So that's kind of how we started. So I have a video here that will show you a bit what we do. Oh yeah, sound's not super important. Oh, is that me? So this is a game you can play here called Lassos that we made for Fantastic Arcade last year. This is part of Bamboo EP. This is a game called Oh Crap, Not Again. This is also part of Bamboo EP, Digital Bird Playground. Unreleased game called Kamer. Oh Crap, Not Again. And Bamboo EP. And the Spider game. It's not called Spider. This is like a maze game that never got finished. So yeah, we do a lot of stuff with like playfulness and smooth procedural animations and physics. Those things tend to play a big role in our games. So basically we like cute things a lot, which is all fun, but next stop is how does our collective actually work? Where's my mouse? Yes. Okay, so it's interesting because within our collective, the things we make are mostly created individually. Each one of us does every aspect of making our game, so art, sound programming, and game design. And we're mostly all doing this multidisciplinary work thanks to game jams. So we don't really work together on the same project with the exception of some. When we do work together, it tends to be for commissions we get as the collective. For example, we got a commission last year from Fantastic Arcade to make a game for them, which is Lassos, which I say you can play here. So if we don't really work together, why did we form a collective, right? I think that's an interesting question. We didn't really start the collective as a means of always working together on the same project. The idea was to mostly keep working as individuals from the start on, and with the option to maybe work together if we wanted. We already did a lot of solo work back then. The thing, though, with Sockpop is that all the big and possibly individual projects are released under the Sockpop name, and we consider all our work that we make, we consider those Sockpop games. So if I make a game during a game jam, I would still consider that a Sockpop game. The line between us as individuals and Sockpop is kind of blurred. Sockpop is us, and we are Sockpop. I think this is what makes us a collective and not like any other company. What's interesting is that Sockpop means sock puppet in Dutch, and interestingly, the collective functions more or less as a sock puppet of our work. This wasn't actually the intention with the name originally, but we later found out that was kind of appropriate. We mostly just picked it because it sounds kind of cute and Japanese. So right, this individualism was one of the ideas we had from the start, and there were some other ideas why we wanted to start Sokpop and why we did that. I'll talk about those initial ideas some more first. Increased visibility was one huge reason for starting Sockpop. As we know nowadays, it's really difficult to get noticed as an independent game developer, and I think it's even harder when you work solo. We thought that if we group up, we can, one, share each other's work on social media, two, have a central hub for all our work that will allow people to find other members of the collective through this central hub, and three, we can put out a lot more things in the name of the collective than if we would do it separately, and I think that helps reminding people that you exist. Like, they see a new GIF from you every week in their news feed or in their Twitter feed, and that really helps. I think that's a pretty neat advantage. So that's basically the way we help each other get more visibility. The second thing is financial support. Financial support was an important second idea of when we started Sockpop. At the time, and still now, we noticed that luck played a big factor in whether or not your games are successfully, commercially succeeded or not. You could make a great game, but if the right person doesn't happen to see it and doesn't make a let's play about it, it could mean you either make a lot of money or you go that broke like the guy on the right. With Sockpop, we wanted to sort of take out this luck factor, and that the idea is that when one of us will make a commercially successful game, it will pump money back into the collective, so that when an individual member needs money for rent or for a new project or for hiring somebody, they would be able to do that. So far, we have only released one commercial project so far, and that was Bamboo EP, a small collection of 3 bamboo-themed games. And this game wasn't very commercially successful, so we still actually need to run into this whole situation. So I'll let you know in a future talk how it's actually going to work out. And we are still definitely discussing within the collective, how is your work? Like, should all the money go back into the collective? Do you get to keep a share? So we're still really trying to figure all of that out. But it's slowly becoming more important now that in the Netherlands we don't get student financing anymore. So we need to start thinking about that. The fourth thing is that that getting feedback from the collective is always super valuable, and I would even say it's more valuable a lot of times than just getting collective from random playtesters. What I think is really valuable about it is that we know each other really well. Like, we know each other's personalities really well, and we know each other's games really well. We know about what the others struggle with. So, for example, I find art to be quite difficult, and the others know that. So that's something I tend to get more feedback on. And on design stuff, they definitely still give me feedback if it's wrong, but they know what kind of feedback I'm looking for. So we tend to also know the intentions of each other's games, so we can provide more valuable feedback that way. We tend to know what they've already tried to solve a certain problem, so we won't give them any useless feedback or solution that they have already tried. Basically, familiarity with each other's project and personalities really helps in providing feedback for each other. So those were some of the initial ideas why we wanted to start out Sockpop, and then slowly during the course of like the last 2 years, we realized that there are a lot of added benefits as well. So I will talk about those now. The first one is sharing resources. This is quite an obvious one. We share a lot of resources within the collective. There's concrete things like code, shaders, sound effects, and yeah, some Sockpop games share the same sound effects, even though they're completely different. Since recently, we have an office space in Utrecht called the Boomhut, together with a bunch of other cool game people. And sometimes we share character designs, so there's some Sockpop games that have the same characters, and lore. And this is initially started out as a joke, but it's turning into a quite real thing now, where we put each other's stuff in our games a lot. Like there's this one fish called Visje from a Tom game he made for Ludum Dare that is now in like 3 or 4 different Sockpop games. And I think that's interesting because it adds like an interesting element to our body of work as a collective, and it makes it more to the outside world interesting to see for people the relationship between these things. Then on a more abstract level, we also share a lot of technical knowledge. We learn a lot of different techniques from each other, like physics, legs, for legs and for rope and that kind of stuff, and design knowledge, so general game design principles that we tend to follow in our games. And I think this really helped us improve as a whole, and it also, this part of this sharing and this feedback created an interesting dynamic resulting in developing the Sockpop Style. So because we're always talking to each other about games and we don't really work together, but we share a lot of stuff, we end up really influencing each other in a certain way that sort of gives this playful vibe to a lot of our games. We didn't really plan this originally, and it just sort of happened. Definitely over the years, our games have grown together more. Because we talk a lot about games to each other, we're going to influence each other a lot. I think that makes sense. Developing our own style is really important to us, as it gives us as a group an identity that people can associate with. And I think this developer identity is becoming more and more important in the industry, and that people have started to care a lot more about the people behind the game. A bit like how in the music industry, the musicians are really an integral part of the music. So that's a benefit of the own style that we have now. So motivating each other, if you're a solo developer, it's super easy to get stuck, right? So we help each other by giving each other feedback and compliments for big and small projects, so both for like small game jams, but also for games that we work on for a longer period of time. It's nice to feel like you're not the only one working on a project, but to have a group of friends supporting you. So recap of what Sockpop provided us with. We have increased visibility, hopefully financial support at some point, feedback, we share resources a lot, we developed our own style, and we're motivating each other a lot in our work. So that's really cool. So if this collective thing is something for you, I will now talk about why or how you should start a collective. Or at least I will talk to you about how we sort of formed and how you sort of the general line from that. So there's 3 easy steps. 1, find people that you like. With that A, small part should have been gone, but 2, become friends with them, and 3, tell the world that you're a collective. Okay. So, find people that you like. This is the first step. Find some people that you like working with, that you like on a personal level, that are around the same skill level as you, because especially that one, it's important because then you can grow a lot faster, right? Because if there's one person who always has to more or less pull the group, I think it really helps to sort of not really compete with each other, but you're constantly trying to make something better, and you do that together, so it feels really good. You can meet them through events, you can meet them through Ludum Dares or through social media. And talking about social media, I think that most of this stuff you can also do online. So it's not necessary that you actually meet your friends in real life, because who does that nowadays? But you can also just meet them on the internet. So 2, become better friends, hang out, whether or not that's digitally, it doesn't matter. I think you often hear people say that you shouldn't start a company with friends, and this is a bit different in the creative industry, but definitely for collectives, you should definitely start one with friends, because it's about having a good time, making cool games, and there's a lot of added extra benefits to that. So we became better friends over a long time, even before we formed the collective, and even now, I think it's slowly getting better. So 3, tell the world that you are a collective, and this sounds like the hardest step, but in fact, it's the easiest. You make a Twitter account, just like that one, and then you post a tweet, and that's the tweet. That's our first tweet. You don't have to worry about anything. Like, you just tell people you're a collective, and that's it. There's nobody's gonna check whether you're a collective or not. This is not like an official title or anything. So the second thing, no need to set up a company, right? All of that can come later when you actually take it more seriously. It took us almost 1.5 years before we officially set up a company, and that was because we wanted to sell Bamboo EP. So just do all of that boring administration stuff when you actually need it, right? And then, oh, okay. For make cool things, there's a fourth step. This should be the most fun part. Like, this is why you formed a collective in the first place. You make GIFs, you make games, you make videos, just make cool things. But you definitely want to make games sometimes, because if you're a game collective and you only make a lot of GIFs, people will definitely say that to you and complain about that. Yeah, that definitely happened to us a couple of times. So yeah, share them. Share them with other, or share them on Twitter, share them on the internet basically, but also share them within your collective. So if you make a new game, talk about it in the collective, talk about what the game means to you, and what you think could have been better. And then slowly you'll get these, hopefully get these advantages of working in a collective slowly going. Like, you'll give each other feedback, you'll motivate each other, you'll share resources with each other, and slowly that will all start to grow, and it will turn into a nice crockpot of cool people with making cool games. In the end, a lot of it is about creating a community, I think, and community is a great thing, and starting a collective is a great way to create a community. So there you have it, 4 steps. There should probably be a 5th step in there with question mark and a 6th one with profit, but we haven't done that yet, so you'll have to figure that out for yourself. Before we're done with this talk, I'll give you a short sneak peek of what's happening for Sokpop next. We're working on a new website which will be our central hub for all of our games, like all of our old and new games, where people will be able to download those and play them. We're designing merch. Yeah, okay. We're making a bunch of games. Tim is working on Original Hill Farming, which is a roguelike farming game. Tom is working on Burmand, a sci-fi city adventure game. And Ruben is working on Box Friends, a petting zoo for your iPhone. And I'm working on secret projects next to doing freelance work. And then maybe we might do tutorials, but that's not official. So special thanks and shout-outs to Stimuleringsfonds, which is a Dutch fund, and they provide me with money to do this presentation here and fly out here. The Boomhut crew for giving me feedback on this presentation, and of course Sockpop. Thanks for listening, and I hope you got something out of this talk.